Okay, well, I'd like to officially welcome everybody. My name is Nick Custer. I am the Innovation Services Manager for U of M Flint's Office of Economic Development and its Innovation Incubator program. I'm very happy to have you guys join us today. We have a great workshop planned for you, and it's a little different than some of the stuff we've been doing the last few months. This is Careers for Superstars, and it's really about all the interesting ways that you can forward your career and your life through the insurance industry. So we're very lucky today to be joined by Mr. Doug Fairbanks. And I'll give a little bit of introduction to him in just a moment. But I do want to also let you guys know that because this is a small session, as you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to unmute yourself and ask that question, or if you'd like to do so anonymously, you can do so through the chat, and then I'll redirect your questions to our great speaker today. Additionally, we offer workshops and webinars like this at no cost, at least twice a month. And so we have another one coming up next week. If there are any folks interested in starting a small business or nonprofit here with us today, and that's how to do the business model canvas. And so that'll be December 9th at noon to 1:30 with a similar format. And again, it's just a great two-dimensional tool for outlining kind of that entire trajectory of the business and how you want it to evolve, and then to notice if there's any holes kind of in that thinking. It's a great pre-business plan step. So I will put that link for registration into the chat as well during the session today. And then after the session, we're going to send you guys a few links as well as a link to the recording. So if you do have anything that you missed, again, you can get a chance to go back through the footage, or if you're interested in taking that next step, there's some great resources there for how you can enter the industry. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker today. There will be no breaks. So like I said, feel free to ask your questions throughout. And if there are any additional questions, we'll save those for the end as well. So Mr. Douglas Fairbanks has more than 15 years experience as an insurance agent. He currently works at the Heartland Insurance Agency and has served as a past president of the Michigan Association of Insurance Agents, the Independent Insurance Agents of Genesee County, and the Fenton Regional Chamber of Commerce. So with that, I'm going to hand over the show to Mr. Fairbanks.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the introduction. Happy to be with you guys this morning. And a little bit further too, since we're talking about careers in insurance, about how I ended up in insurance and kind of what I've done since I've been there. Back in 2000, after graduating, actually while I was in school, I started a horse transportation business and operated that for about 4 years. And then around 2000, business partner and I decided that we weren't going to continue that and do that any longer. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do at that point for a career, since it looked like shipping horses all over the US and Canada was not what I was going to be doing. And it happened that one of my clients had an equine MGA. So what that means is he was a managing general agent doing equine insurance, doing horse insurance. So his clients were both other agents that had clients that had horses or horse farms or were trainers, as well as working directly with horse owners, trainers, instructors, farm owners. And talking to him a little bit, I had said, I'm getting out of shipping horses and trying to figure out what to do next. And he said, if you're interested, I'm looking to hire, and I can teach insurance to a horse person, but I can't teach horses to an insurance person. And if you're interested, come work for me for a little while. We'll do something on maybe like a week or two trial. And if you like me and what we're doing, and I like you, then we'll figure out something long term. So I took him up on that offer, and I was there for about 3 years before I decided I wanted to go out onto the sales side of things and be out in the field and working with customers outside the office, and chose to leave at that point. So I've been in insurance now about 20 years, and it really has been an amazing career. It's been wonderful. I'm fortunate to be able to have time to travel, to have a flexible schedule. And it's provided a great career for myself and my family. So throughout that time, I've been involved with our industry and our association. I'm past president or chairman for Michigan Young Agents Council back when I was younger. and then also served on our national association for the Young Agents Group. And there's only 5 nationally that serve on that board, and I was there for a couple of years on that board as well. So regardless of what industry you go into, I think really being a student of your industry, being involved in your industry, and those things happen over time by choices and decisions that you make, but those will help you be successful, whether you're in insurance or whether you're in screw manufacturing, whatever it is that you decide to go into. Really being a part of that, I think helps make you a success. So I'm going to share my screen at this point, stop talking about myself. We can talk about insurance, which is much more interesting. Even though I know most people would not say that insurance is interesting. There we go, we're full screen. So INVEST is a program that's been set up by our national association to try and recruit new talent to the industry. We do, as an industry, have a lot of people that are going to be retiring over the next few years. The median age is up in the around 60 years old for an agent, and so we're going to see a lot of turnover of talent over the next few years, next 10 years. So there's certainly going to be jobs available and positions available. Some things that we'll talk about today would be things to think about when you're considering employment, not just in insurance, but in general. We'll talk a little bit about insurance, who are the customers and the products of the industry. It goes much further beyond the 15 minutes of saving to save 15% on your auto insurance. It's much more interesting, diverse than that. We'll talk about all the different careers within insurance. It's not just about sales. There are so many other careers that go with this industry that it really doesn't matter, I think, what your specialty is and what your interest is. There's probably a spot within the insurance industry that would cater to that. We'll talk a little bit about some additional learning that you can do and after you get into insurance. We'll talk about the stability of the industry, and I can actually touch on that a little bit right now too. I've been at Heartland since 2008, and I started building my book of business here in 2008. And as most of you probably know or remember, maybe you're too young to remember, but 2008 was not a great economic time. Even though it was not a great economic time, I was able to basically start a business. My book of business is sort of my own business within the agency in a way. And if you look back to the time of the Depression as well, banks went bankrupt, but insurance companies did not. And it's a very stable industry, regardless of it being a really good economy, a really bad economy, or mediocre. We'll talk a little bit about if you're thinking about insurance agent, what's the difference between a captive agent and an independent agent? And we'll talk too about some of the new technology that's coming down the pike that's going to be influencing the insurance industry. Some of the things up here that are mentioned may or may not be of interest to you. Some people are interested in traveling for work. Some people want to go to the same office every day, 9 to 5, and come home. But there's different parts of insurance that each of these certainly speak to. Some people want flexibility. If you're on the sales side of things, oftentimes your work is out in the field meeting with business owners and doing community events and things like that in the evening as well. And you're often probably traveling for those sorts of things to meet with people. And you've got some flexibility because you're out and about. If you prefer the known more than opportunity for things, then certainly a 9 to 5, show up at the office and have something that's very stable and consistent is available too. So, but all those things, it's just sort of endless in terms of opportunities and the types of positions that there are within the industry. So when you're looking at what you want to do for a job, for a career, there's some things to think about. So think about salary, of course. That's the main one that always comes to mind, right? That's the first one that's listed here. But salary isn't always the number one most important thing once you think about it a little bit. And salary is not salary. If you are offered, we'll pick a number, $50,000, and you are living in Gaylord, Michigan, that 50,000 is going to take you a lot further than, say, if you're living in downtown Chicago. So you may move someplace else for a higher salary, but the expenses and the lifestyle and things that go with that area may be actually, you can end up making and taking home less at the end of the day than someplace else. And maybe you want to work in the city, maybe you don't, maybe you want to work in a rural environment. So part of your thought too should be location in terms of where do you want to work. Obviously benefits, these are common with regard to healthcare, dental, 401k, et cetera. They'll change obviously depending upon what company you're looking at hiring in. The job description, that's something that certainly you'd want to review and say, is this something that I would enjoy? You really, I think we all, when we're starting, are chasing the dollar. What can I go do that's going to make me the most money the fastest? But you're going to be spending a lot of time doing it, and you better darn well like it. And if you don't like it, there's probably at the point at which you're going to say, there's not enough money anymore for me to continue doing this. I have to do something different, and you're now trying to reinvent yourself later in your career. Give some mind to office culture. When you're interviewing places, see if you can get a tour of the office, see if you can get something that'll give you a little bit of a feel for the office culture. When I left that original equine agency that I started, I had offers at 2 different insurance agencies. And the one that I chose was because I liked the culture the best. The other agency that had made me an offer, they seemed a little bit more traditional, more suit and tie. And I'm just not a tie kind of guy. It was a good agency. It was a good offer. It would have been a great career there. But I felt at the time, because the offers were so close, I went and made my decision based upon the culture of the 2 agencies. So you look to it, responsibilities. What are you going to be responsible for? How much oversight is there going to be? Think about hours. Is it just going to be 9 to 5? Is it going to be beyond that? Being in insurance sales as I am, it's not a 9 to 5 job. I have meetings at 7 a.m. sometimes. I have meetings after hours. If I'm traveling for some conferences or other things, it could be evenings and weekends. Generally, salespeople are involved in community, and so you might be doing things with nonprofits and community groups, that are certainly outside the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 time. And then the last is, working conditions. Obviously, if you want to be outside, that's a different type of job than if you want to be in an office. And there's no right or wrong to any of these. It's what are you looking for and what are you going to enjoy? And if you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to probably be good at it. If you're good at it, you're going to do well. The money and everything generally will follow that. So insurance, we see the 15 minutes to save 15%, and that's, I think, what most people experience with insurance. Or you have the Groundhog Day of the life insurance salesman that's running Phil down to try and sell him life insurance. And those are kind of our 2 main, I think, perceptions of what insurance is like. But it is so much more beyond that. So some of the specialty markets and some of the industries that insurance caters to or their customers. And if you think about what your own interests are, oftentimes you can find interests that then correlate to the insurance industry. So I mentioned equine earlier, I mentioned horse. I grew up riding horses. That's how I got into owning horses. I knew early on that I wanted to have my own business and be in business for myself. And that's how I started the trucking company. But equine insurance and horse insurance is a unique market all to itself. And it's an expertise within the industry. Similar to that is aviation. If you're a pilot, if you love to fly, if you have an interest in that, that's a specialty program within insurance. And there are, on the company side, underwriters that need to know aviation. They need to know what they're looking at. They need to understand planes. They need to understand the avionics that go into it. What does it mean if this plane has this equipment in it versus that? What about the pilot? How much experience should he have? They need to know the industry in order to be able to underwrite. And not everybody knows everything about everything. So a lot of it, you'll learn as you go. And if there's something that you're interested in, oftentimes if you can sort of get a toehold in there and show some interest and start to learn, you can then roll from that and grow. With regard to the classic cars, that's limited there. There's a company called Hagerty Insurance. They're based up in Traverse City. And they started just to insure actually wooden boats, old wooden boats. And from that, they grew into classic cars. And quite a few years ago, they were looking at creating a program for museums because there are classic car museums. But museum insurance is very different than just a guy who owns a 55 Chevy. It's a different sort of thing. And at the time, the Cultural Center was a client of mine. The Buick Gallery is there, the Sloan Museum. There are vehicles that are part of their collection. And Hagerty came to me and asked if I would sort of help them a little bit with regard to the museum program that we had and were using for the Cultural Center to help them to be able to develop a program that they would be able to offer to the Cultural Center or the Gilmore Museum and other car museums across the country. So on the sales side of it, if you're going to be selling to that group, you probably need to know a little bit about vehicles. You probably need to know a little bit about how nonprofits work. And on the company side, they want people that know classic cars, that know vehicles, and that when someone says, "Hey, I know this doesn't fall quite within what you say you want, but this is a really special car because of A, B, and C," an underwriter can look at it and say, "Well, you might think it's a special car, but really it's not, and it's not going to qualify." Or, "Yes, indeed that is, and I think that's something we can make an exception for." And they need to know some of the ins and outs of how to determine pricing for products, how to adjust. So if you're an adjuster, the way that you might fix a 1940 automobile is going to be different than a 2020 aluminum F-150. And so adjusters need to know the difference too. So it within any interest group, almost there is an insurance product that services it. If you like boating, there are marine programs that are just for marinas, for jet ski rentals, pontoon rentals, boat dealers. And obviously, if your interest is in boating, you're probably, if you're on the sales side, you're probably going to be going after those customers because it's fun. If you like boats, you get to go to a marina and a boat dealer and talk boats and enjoy that side. And if you're on the company side of things, and you like boats and you're a statistician, you're going to be able to help develop rates to decide, how do we price coverage for this type of boat, or how do we price coverage for a marina or this type of risk. So no matter what the industry is, no matter what your interest is, there's probably something in insurance that relates to it. So as you're moving forward and you're thinking about what sort of things, not just in insurance, but any sort of employer is looking for in terms of talent, these are some of the things that obviously are top of mind for most companies that are hiring. So communication, if you're on a customer service position, if you're an underwriter working with an agent, if you're an agent working with an insured, you need to be able to communicate with them effectively. You need to be able to write well, speak well. You need to be able to know when to shut up and listen, not talk over people. And some of those things certainly are difficult. I can tell you writing, I write things and I rewrite things. If I'm writing a presentation, I'll probably send it off to somebody else and ask them to correct some things. I hate having to not write on the computer because I'm a horrible speller and I need spell check. And people judge you by those things, so and rightly or wrongly, but they do. And so unfortunately, it does make a difference. So be cognizant of that. No matter what you go into problem solving, you're going to have problems that come up, and you're going to have to figure out how to solve it. I had a package person deliver a package last night, and he couldn't get the package to scan on the phone, and he didn't know what to do. And sort of stood there for a while saying, well, I can't deliver it until it's scanned, but they didn't tell me what to do. So again, doesn't matter what you do, you have to think about some of those critical problem solving skills. And being able to highlight some of these things on your resume or your CV it is going to show value to prospective employers. I will say too that a continuous learner, anytime you talk to really highly effective people, really successful people about some of the things that they find other successful people do and that they think has helped make them successful, is that they are lifelong learners. And that doesn't mean that you have postdoctoral degrees necessarily. If you want to do that, that's great, go for it. However, it can just be that having a curious mind, being interested, and the more things that you're interested in, and you don't have to be an expert in, but the more things that you're interested in and know some things about, the more you'll be able to relate to other people because they'll have different and varying interests, and the more well-rounded you will be. So I would strongly encourage you guys to read nonfiction. I set goals for myself of number of nonfiction books to read every year. I would highly suggest that you don't have to necessarily be a news junkie, but you should have an idea of what's going on and follow both sides. I read and see in my news feed is Fox News and CNN, and I look at both, and you sort of balance the two out. And it's interesting too to see what gets covered in one, what doesn't get covered in the other. And I don't think most people do that, but it allows you too that when you are working with somebody who's on one side or on the other side, you probably understand what they've heard, what they think, and where that's coming from. And then just general, Christian Science Monitor is a wonderful news publication, the Smithsonian Magazine, and you can get some great stuff through your news feed, whether it's the Google News Feed or Apple or whatever. But just interesting things that catch your eye. Take 3 minutes, even if it's just skimming through to see what is a quantum computer, or how is it that Google has created new AI software that predicts how proteins fold so you can affect research with regard to disease and aging. I'm not an expert in that, but I think it's interesting, and you catch little bits here and there, and it just sort of rounds you off. And the more you learn, the more curious you are, the more successful I think you'll be as a person. And then certainly with whatever industry you end up in, be a student of your industry and really try to be an expert in your industry. The more that you're able to learn, the more that you're able to shine, that you can apply thoughts, that you can apply theories to situations, the more problem-solving skills you'll have, the better you'll be equipped. It's just like having extra tools in your tool chest that you don't need them every day, but every now and then when you have the right tool, it gets the job done. It's makes it so much more effective, and you look like a superstar when you're able to do some of that. So what are some of the jobs within insurance? I'm in sales. I can tell you that COVID, obviously times are a little bit different. I used to spend most of my time out meeting face-to-face with most of my clients. I prospected mostly that way too, face-to-face. I'm doing less of that. It's more Zoom to Zoom, I guess. Still some face-to-face depending upon the situation. But sales and I do farm insurance and business insurance and nonprofit. And those are my niches that I work in. If you're doing home and auto insurance, you are probably more in the office and more phone work than face-to-face and traveling to people's homes. But there's the sales side of things. And we talked before about what matches with your personality, right? So I had a customer and her son was thinking about insurance, and she asked if I'd be willing to talk to him a little bit. We discussed some of it, and he said, well, what's the difference between commercial insurance and personal insurance? I said, well, business insurance, you're going out and you're meeting with business owners. You're out of the office mostly. And, it could be a sausage manufacturing one day, and moving into a carpenter that, 3 hours later to meet with, and it's very varied, it's very different. Each risk is unique. For the personal line side, there's some differences because not everybody's the same, and maybe they have a classic car, maybe they have a yacht, but you're mostly in the office. It's more 9 to 5, and it's similar where you're entering information into a system for home information, for auto information. Companies give you rates back, and you offer those to the customer. There's more negotiation on rates and coverages on the commercial side. So it's kind of a one is here's the rates, take it or leave it. We can change deductibles and coverages for the personal. And then the commercial is here's the rates. Now let's discuss what we might offer for pricing deviations from what our base is. Maybe we'll offer this coverage, maybe we won't, and it's negotiating. And he said, well, I think definitely the personal side. And I thought to myself, he's crazy. Why would he do that? Like, to me, that side I'm just not geared that way. That seems sort of boring. To him, that seemed interesting, and the other side seemed sort of crazy and uncomfortable. And so think about what you want to do on your daily tasks and daily business, and then whether or not the jobs that are available fit well into that. So customer service, whether you're on the company side or the business or the agency side, I'm sorry. If you're on the agency side, you're dealing with the policyholders, you're dealing with the public. It's a 9 to 5 position generally. You're in the office usually, and maybe you're remote. Some agencies do offer customer service reps that can work from home. Some of them want them physically in the office to be able to work with others, and also for customers that come in. That job to me is probably the hardest in the agency. Anytime somebody calls about their insurance, sometimes it's because I bought a car, I sold a car, but usually they're calling because there's a problem. Usually they're saying, my bill doesn't seem right. Why is this happening? I just found out that something may not be covered in a claim. I'm not happy about that. And so it's rare that somebody just calls in and says, hey, I want to let you know I got my insurance and I'm just so happy to get my insurance policy today. Thanks, and hope you're having a wonderful day. It is challenging, but there's a lot of stability to it. And you kind of know what your day is going to look like each day. While sales is often based upon commission, customer service is usually based upon hourly or salary. So there's a lot of knowns to it, but there's a lot of unknowns in the sales side. Looking at analytics, so that would be more on the company side of things. So when I say company, I mean insurance company, like auto owners insurance, Allstate, Travelers Insurance, Hartford, those sorts of things. So they're going to, if you're an actuary, you're going to be helping to determine rates for things. So what should it cost to insure my 1955 Chevy? How do we determine what collision rates should be for that? What amount can we charge to be competitive so we can get your business and not the next company, but that we're still going to make money? And that's a field that's really grown where they look at so many different variants, and Progressive was sort of the first one that started to come out with a multivariant rating system where they said there's a whole bunch of things that we can rate on. And if one of these things changes, then it might change the rate this way or that way. And they looked at things like, all right, well, how many years in business have you been operating? And how does that affect your likelihood of turning in a claim? And how does that affect the size of your claim when you do turn one in? So with that, how do we change your premium for a company that's 2 years in business versus a company that's 22 years in business? There's a company, Pioneer, here in Michigan, based in Flint. They realized through some of their actuarial science that they found there were more claims when there were personal auto policies that had less drivers than vehicles. So it would seem the opposite, right? Because you can only drive so many cars at a time. And if you have 5 cars on a policy and you have 2 people as drivers on the policy, you probably should have less claims. What they actually found by doing some work is that they were paying more claims on policies where the drivers to cars ratio kind of was off a little bit. And so an actuarial scientist would be a job where you'd be working to try and find some of the links like that, find your competitive advantage for the insurance company. Finance, some insurance premiums are financed. So just like you get a loan for a car, you can get a loan for your insurance. You can also, within the insurance company, there are people within the billing department that have to be able to work through the billings and a lot of times on commercial insurance, there are audits we base insurance on expected sales or payrolls or other figures, and then they audit to find out what actually was. And if you make changes as you go back and forth through the year, premiums come on and go off, and you need to make sure that billing is correct and applied properly. So there's a billing department within each company. So if you're going into finance, then that's a part of it. They also have insurance companies, they invest the money that they receive. So they keep a certain amount set aside in liquid assets to pay out claims. And then they also take some of it and put it into investments and try and make money that way. So within the insurance companies, there is an investment and finance side to that as well. Maybe you want to be an adjuster. So you enjoy building in the trades, or you enjoy working on cars. That would be traits that would probably lend well to being an adjuster, to be able to go out and say, well, the tornado took the roof off, and in order to put the roof back on, we're going to have to replace these joists, and we're going to have to do that, and walk through everything and adjust the claim to make sure that the right amount is paid and that we're not underpaying the policyholder, and that we're also not giving away too much and overpaying in the legal situation. So underwriters on the company side, again, they will look at the different, we call them risks that come to them, the different companies, and they will have to figure out, is this a company that we think is going to have claims? If so, how many claims? For really, really large risks, you almost certainly will have claims, and they have to sort of pick out what's their loss pick. What do they think the amount of claims is going to be, and then how much profit do we need? How much do we have in expenses? And figure out what the premium should be for that individual risk. So underwriters are in charge of really deciding, whether they're going to be offering coverage or not. On the engineering side, if you're interested in building, if you're interested in engineering as well, there are risk managers, and the companies will often send these out for businesses, and they will look at the physical plant, they'll look at the property, and they'll say, well, this building has an XYZ type of sprinkler system, and with this sprinkler system and what you're storing in here, we have pallets stacked too high. We should have them lower than what they're currently stacked. Or for this type of contents, we're storing plastic here, we should have a different sprinkler type for this building. So there's loss control, they call it, or risk managers that would go out to the site. They would also look at things like the driveway is falling apart and there's cracks all over, and someone's probably going to trip, and we need to do something about that. So some of it's kind of simple and sort of stuff sticks out, but some of it is certainly more detail oriented and something that you need to be trained on with regard to building and codes and in that area. Technology. So this is huge within the industry. Whether you are on the company side, whether you're on the agent's side, insurance companies, they have web pages and they have software to come up with premiums and to rate and to offer quotes and to issue policies. So they have all of that technology that needs to be supported. They also have the cyber side of things where they need to be able to make sure that things are protected. Agents have the same sort of thing where we have email, we have customer programs that house all of our customers' private data that needs to be protected. So there's a ton of opportunity with regard to technology in our industry. Of course, with regard to management, any large company is going to have people that act in management positions. Obviously, you don't usually walk out of school and into management. Usually, you're going to go into underwriting before you become an underwriting manager. But those positions for middle management certainly exist within companies and within agencies too. There's often office managers within an agency. Beyond that, there are other things. I mean, there are recruiters that specialize just in insurance. There are people, I spoke briefly with regard to audits. So there are people that will go out and do audits on the insurance policies to say, all right, we expected 500,000 in payroll. What did we actually have? And well, what about this person? Were they actually an employee, or are they a subcontractor, or what are they, and do we charge? On the claims side, there's investigators that if we feel like there's fraud, they might send out a special investigator to determine is this really a legitimate claim, or is someone trying to pull them over insurance? We have drone pilot listed here, though I would say that drone pilot is something that either a loss control or engineering person might become licensed in or have as a tool, or also a claims adjuster, but to have it just as its own, that's all you do is probably unlikely. It's used more for adjusting claims, and say there's a large building and you want to inspect the roof, because if it leaks, you're going to have to pay a claim on the contents. So you might use a drone to be able to see things on the roof and see conditions and so forth, and so that loss control person can use it for something like that. So within insurance, I mean, there's the variety. You know, as you can see, the number of positions within insurance, I mean, the variety is just as great as the customer's needs are, as we talked earlier about the different types of policies, different industries, different niches within the industry that exist. And no matter where you start, I started at that first equine agency, and I did filing. I was answering the phone and doing some very simple horse mortality quotes and filing papers. There's room for advancement within this industry, regardless of which side you're on, the agency or the company, to basically get into whatever position it is that you want to get into. We talked about some of the problem solving. There's anytime someone calls, generally it's because there's a problem and we have to figure out how to solve it. Sometimes on the sales side, it's what problems could we foresee happening, and how do we protect against, if that problem happens, that you're not going to be out of business. So the stability with this industry, I'm surprised. I can tell you when COVID first hit, I thought, oh boy, we're all going to be in trouble. And I have clients that are, unfortunately. I have a client that he rents rock walls for climbing and bounce houses and other outdoor entertainment things. And parties have been pretty much non-existent, and his business has been basically gone for the last year. He's hoping that this next year he'll be able to do it again, but he's gone from a good business to basically nothing. And that's not something that happens within insurance. You might have some clients that, like him, that are in trouble, or maybe they canceled policies, but you also have other clients that the opposite happens to. I have a client that makes paper filter medium. So he makes masks, and he had huge orders when things first happened because he was able to produce and sell masks here. So the stability that's offered by the industry is something that's of huge value. And it just, you look back to 2008 too, and you think, well, construction trades, those are pretty stable. I mean, everybody needs a toilet to flush, and everybody needs their electricity to come on. But when home building is down and there's more trades than there are demand, it's tough. And that industry really, really hurt during that 2008 time and beyond. And it's doing well now, but it sort of goes up and down. And insurance goes up and down a little bit, but it really is stable. I mean, that's the 2008 time is the time that I was able to start and grow a new book of business. The personal growth and satisfaction, that's something that I think you need to think about how that fits into whatever industry you go into. I think it's really easy to see or realize that, I guess, within the insurance industry. It's something that I enjoy helping people. I enjoy working with people and finding the best solutions for them. And the money part just sort of follows as a result of doing that. And I get a great amount of satisfaction when I know that I've done that for my customers. Also, generally, the agent side of things, it's very community involved. Our community is our customers. And so generally insurance agents want to be involved in the community. And most agents or agencies are very supportive of staff that participate in like United Way's Day of Caring, or being involved in Rotary or Kiwanis or Kids Kicking Cancer, or whatever it is that your interest is. Being involved in having a career in an industry that supports you in those things, to be able to be part of that and give back to others, that I think breeds a lot of satisfaction in your life as you're working through your professional career. I will say too that, and talk about being inclusive, our industry traditionally has just been old white men as the majority, unfortunately. And we are working hard to change that. That's not what our customers look like. It's not what the industry wants itself to look like. And there are a lot of programs right now, and we're working very hard as an industry to really make our industry look more like our customers, which is very, very diverse. So, we talked again about the jobs. I mean, just as you're thinking about some of the options that are within the industry, what fits into what you want to do? Do you want to be in front of a computer screen? Do you want to be out going to auto body shops and looking at vehicles that need repair and doing estimates, but not actually having to do the work yourself? Do you want to be a claims adjuster, traveling out to see homes that have burned or trees that have fallen down, to be able to help people get their lives back together? Sometimes there's travel in that. Sometimes when there's catastrophic claims, you'll see like when Katrina hit, companies will ship claims adjusters from all parts of the country to where it needs to happen. There's some pictures there of a sailboat marooned up on the beach. Again, that's a really interesting, to me at least. I'm not a boater. I get seasick, but I think it's interesting and it's unique, and it's kind of a different world if your specialty is yachts. And the horse down below. Like I said, I'm first with the horses, and I'm happy to be able to make that part of what I do. When I get in my free time, I like to go to the barn and ride. So when my work involves going to the barn to meet with people that have barns and horses and ride, it's wonderful to be able to go to the barn for my work. So it's an awesome thing when we can make those things combine. So we talked a little bit earlier about drones. Basically where they're being used now, what we're seeing is on the claim side and on the inspection side. And most people are not just simply a drone pilot and that's all they do for a company. Most of them are adjusters or inspectors that are getting trained in using drones. So an interesting thing coming forward, and as we talk about any of this stuff, or things, we have in kind of a small intimate group today too. So if you have questions, and even if it's, well, how would I do this, or if it's about you, feel free to jump in, unmute yourself and ask, or send a message to Nick there too, and he'll ask it for you. But cybersecurity is obviously a huge issue. And we think, mostly when we think about cybersecurity, about the Target breach that happened sometime. But it's not just the big box stores that have cyber issues. And ironically enough, I don't know if you guys know this, but the way that they hacked into the Target program is that there was a computer system that ran basically everything for Target. And that mainframe had the point of sale information flowing over it, but it also controlled the building mechanicals. So for the heat and air conditioning, to keep that operating properly. And the HVAC contractor unknowingly had been hacked. And when he went in and he was working within the Target program, or the Target computer system, because of the HVAC system, they entered in that way. So when when we have customers that's a heating and cooling contractor, and they think, well, I have no exposure to a cyber sort of thing, they do. And just about every small business does, just as every individual does. I mean, there's the LifeLock program that's out there because individuals have, a vulnerability to having your computer information or your banking information stolen, your password stolen, somebody hacking into your credit cards or your bank account and taking money out. I've seen claims with local businesses, specifically one that had a Shopify account. They had decided not to carry cyber coverage. They were doing well. The owner really wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the bank account because he didn't need to. Somebody's hacked into their system. They don't know how. The FBI is investigating it. And through this Shopify account, they pulled about $250,000 out of his account. So the risk is there for us as business owners and as individuals, but then on the other side, there are jobs for people that consultants to be able to say, here's what we need to do so that we can offer a cyber insurance policy. And we need to make sure that our customers are doing these following things to lower our chances of having to pay a claim or then having a claim occur. And we need a claims adjuster that knows that when cybersecurity breaches happen and there is a claim, here's how we deal with it. And here's how we correct it. Here's how we pay. If somebody holds a website hostage and demands ransom, do we pay it? Do we not? If we do, being the insurance company, because you can buy coverage for that, how do you make sure it gets to the person that is doing the ransom and that they're actually going to release your website and get it back? As an agency, how do we make sure that we are secure from outside attacks? And the same thing from the company. So there's, even within just the technology side of things, there's the cybersecurity niche within it. And then within the cybersecurity niche, there are the forms and coverages versus the claim side. There's just so many ways to go, within the industry. We talked before about the underwriter. This is just a little bit more information. Generally, they have some software that they use, and then they put in information with regard to the specific information on the companies that they're looking at, the risks that they're looking at. There are also programs that are bigger than just going to buy insurance. So, for instance, University of Michigan has their own person or their own risk manager, he's called, and their job is just to manage the risk and determine, do we buy insurance for this? Do we not? Do we self-insure it? Do we stop doing it? Do we buy or create our own insurance company for doing this, along with some other universities maybe? And so you could work for, on the underwriting side, you'd be working for a company, but certainly as things get bigger, there are positions for risk managers within large corporations as well, which is similar to an underwriting position. We talked about the actuary. So this would be your statistician. This is the person that would probably prefer to be handed numbers and charts and graphs and make sense of what goes what way, and not have people call and say, why is my bill wrong? What's going on here? It looks like my VIN is incorrect on this. How do we get this fixed? They'd probably rather work with numbers than people, though they do generally need to be able to bring their information to the companies, to the managers, and say, here's why I think these are the right rates for these things. Here's why I think we should do this. Here's maybe a competitive advantage, I think, if we try to rate on this, and here's the research for it. So it's a numbers and a research position. We talked a lot about sales. To me, sales is fun because it's not sales per se. You're not selling something to somebody, trying to get them into a new car that maybe they should or shouldn't buy. It's there are needs for insurance, and that's generally why people buy it. And when you can help them solve those needs at their lowest cost, that to me is a good thing and a fun thing. And when you land an account, when you get a big account, and feel like you've won. It's sort of it's competitive. It's absolutely competitive. And if you're involved in sports and you like competing, then sales is probably something that you would enjoy because of that competing nature. But at the same time, being able to help people. It's not about you. It's about the clients and the customers that you're working with and helping them. If you're thinking about sales, there's kind of two different sides. So most people think about captive insurance agents first, just because they're the ones with the biggest budgets for advertising. So this would be the Allstate, the Farm Bureaus, the Farmers of the world. And what it means is that they're basically captive to those companies. If you call an Allstate agent, they will give you an Allstate quote. If you call an independent insurance agent, they'll be able to give you a quote with whatever independent companies they have contracts to be able to represent. So we're fortunate that we have about a dozen different companies that we have direct contracts with. So if the Allstate agent has a great price, and they're able to write it, that's great. If we have one company that is very uncompetitive, we probably have another that is competitive. And so it gives more options to the agent to be able to be competitive and have things that, or have companies that are willing to insure different things. And it gives more options to the customer as you're able to get more quotes and options for them. So we do sometimes see independent agents that go over to the captive side, but more often if somebody switches, we see them switching from the captive side to the independent agent side. I am partial to the independent agent side, just maybe because it's, that is what I do. But I would, if I were thinking about it, I would probably start on the independent agent side, not knocking the other guys. I just feel like it gives a little bit more option, I guess. So.
Hey, Doug, real quick, we got a question from Kay. What analytic tools are typically used? What software programs should I be familiar with for the analytic, actuary, or underwriting positions?
So that's a great question. A lot of that is proprietary. So, and it's kind of the secret sauce for a lot of the companies where they feel like they can outdo the other companies. And I think for a while there were like 240 different variables that went into rating an auto policy. And it's changed now a little bit. There were some changes in the Michigan no fault law that what you can and can't rate on. But so there's not a single program out there that everybody uses. Otherwise, probably everybody would have the same price. And so it would be proprietary, but it's wide. And so one of the things too that we've seen in recent times is, should your credit score be involved in what you pay or affect what you pay for your insurance? And if you have poor credit, does it mean that you're going to have an insurance claim? Well, having poor credit doesn't cause an insurance claim, right? It's not causatory, but it is corollary. So they have done research and they have found data that those with higher credit generally have less insurance claims. So some of the insurance companies use that. Now, some people have said, well, that's not fair. I have a unique hardship that happens. It's the same car. I'm the same driver. I live in the same house. Why would I have to pay more insurance just because I lost my job and had to declare bankruptcy? And I can absolutely see that point. And I think one of the things too on insurance is that it's law of big numbers. It's averages. It's looking at the group of many and applying it to the one. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to insure, a $400,000 house for whatever the number is, $800 a year. I mean, if you went to me and said, "Hey, I'll give you $800, but if my home burns down, you'll give me $400,000 this year," right? I would say, "You're out of your mind. No way." So it's those big numbers and knowing that most people are not going to have their house burned down, but some are. So the analytic programs, most of them are proprietary. There are some companies out there that like rating software, they will buy sort of off the shelf. So there are companies that they sell their rating software to insurance companies to do their rating. And then they tweak what they have a little bit to how the insurance companies are rating. But it's the insurance companies' rates that get plugged into those programs, and those rates come from the actuarial science and looking at what factors. But they look at so many different factors now, from age of vehicles to just the industry that you're in, the number of years in business, how many vehicles are on, what physical location you're in. There's just so many factors, and a lot of that gets pulled in the background because there's a lot of that information that you can get from other sources that we don't have to go and ask the company. So I would say to sort of be aware of the fact that many things can go into the rating, and they're always looking for more things. I mean, you wouldn't think necessarily in the credit. And I heard a gentleman joke that they actually did a study because they were curious if there was any correlation between people who bowled and didn't bowl in claims and bowling scores of those that did. And they found that there was actually actuarial data that supported there was some correlation between those things, which we're not going to go out and ask people for their bowling scores to come up with a rate. But companies are really trying to figure out what are some of the things that they can learn or tweak or do that the other companies are missing to give that competitive advantage. So not a single software company. A lot of it is unique to the companies, but you would be trained certainly on how to use those things if you were in this position. So just knowing how to use the computer programs and get through the computer systems, I think would be valuable. If that doesn't answer your questions or you've got another follow-up on that, please let me know. As I said before, customer service, that's the hardest job. It really is. It's dealing with the clients generally don't understand insurance. If they're calling, it's probably because there's a problem or they need something fixed. And so it also is, however, the one that's the most stable, that is the most predictable. Your job starts at a certain time, lunch is at a certain time, and you go home at a certain time, and you get to kind of not have to worry about things on nights and weekends. I get messages and texts and do things nights and weekends from clients. So it's just sort of a different things. So really, there's so many reasons I think that insurance, regardless of what it is that you're interested in, if you're interested in accounting, if you're interested in sales, if you're interested in technology, IT, the insurance industry really most likely has a place for you. And it seems like a boring industry, but once you start to bore into it a little bit and realize what it actually serves and understand that it's not just about 15% in 15 minutes on an auto quote, that we're looking at people's businesses, that we're looking at farms, that we're looking at within that too, math, if you're a math person, or marketing. We didn't even talk about the marketing part, but somebody has to put together the programs for advertising, for marketing, within the companies as well. I have a friend that works for auto owners insurance, and he was in underwriting for a long time. He liked the fact he got to go home and not think about stuff. They had tried to promote him to some different things, and he said, I like what I do, I don't want it. I don't want more stress and all that. And then they said, well, how about if you help us with reinsurance? You really understand insurance and you are bright. And you've helped us develop some programs. And insurance companies actually go back to other insurance companies to insure what they've insured. So if they offer $1 million policy, say on an auto, they are probably going to pay they'll pick a point, $400,000, whatever it is. And then they'll say anything over $400,000, we want another insurance company to pay. And so they'll go to their reinsurance company. And it might be on a single claim basis or in an aggregate. So from a large hailstorm or something like that, if they got total claims exceeding an amount. And so insurance companies seek reinsurance, is what it's called, from another company. And my friend works within the insurance company, and his job now is negotiating reinsurance contracts. So he likes the policy wording part. He likes the contract part. He came from a family who owned an insurance agency, and he didn't want to be on the sales side. He didn't want to deal with the general public. That just wasn't in his sphere of interest. But he does very, very well working for auto owners, helping them reinsure what they've already insured. So there's just so many things. There are additional not degrees, but designations that you can get as you move through insurance for both underwriting, chartered property casualty underwriting. A CPCU is a designation for underwriters. There are certified insurance counselors, CICs, and many other post getting into the business designations that really help you dig in and understand and grasp. And when you have more letters behind your name, it helps either with sales, or it helps negotiate some higher benefits from your employer as well, or benefits could also be salary, right? So what are some things coming down the line too that are interesting that are going to be affecting the industry? We're talking about driverless cars. I was in a Tesla with a friend, and he took his hand off the steering wheel and off his foot off the accelerator. We're driving in Lansing on a 4-lane road with lights, and the light changes from green to red or yellow and then red. And I think, oh boy, and the car stops itself, and with the car in front of it at the light changes to green and the car goes. And it was really, really amazing. So, I mean, that's here. It's not widespread, right? But it's here. And it will be more and more widespread as those technologies become less and less expensive and in cars that are based towards the masses instead of some of the specialty vehicles. So how is that going to affect insurance? They're still going to get hit by hail if they're parked outside, right? So we're still going to have claims. There will still be other vehicles that can drive into them. Deer will still probably jump out of nowhere and find those vehicles. But what about repairing them? How do you repair a vehicle that drives itself? It's not just the plastic bumper and the paint. There's computer sensors and there's computer parts that are in there. And do you need to be an auto mechanic, or do you need to be a computer person to do that? Yes is maybe the answer. I don't know. Remote monitoring, there's some things, everything now is remote. So whether it's, there are things like remote monitoring of water flow, so that they can tell if you have a pipe break in your house and it can shut your valve off and stop the water flow. But also remote work is really a big thing now. I have an underwriter that she's from Michigan. She moved to North Carolina. The company is based here in Michigan that she works for. And they only write in Michigan, but they said, we really like you and we want to keep you. Why don't you work from home from North Carolina to do Michigan insurance? And some of the companies in Michigan would say there's no way we're doing that. I think they're much more likely to do that now. But remote work is certainly an option. You're not limited necessarily if you want to live in Michigan and you want to live in Gaylord. We talked about, just to pick on Gaylord as we did before, if you like Northern Michigan, and work for an agency in Colorado, it's possible now. So there's some things that are opening up there, which broadens your maybe your possibilities, but maybe it makes the talent pool that much larger too, and that much more competition. Usage-based insurance, that's something that goes into some of that actuary science, that we have programs now or things that will plug into the vehicles, and it'll say, all right, we're driving generally this much, and we had this many hard stops, this many quick turns, and hard accelerations, and how do we rate based upon all that? Telemedicine. A few months ago, I wanted to see my doctor, but COVID was still, we were in lockdown. They weren't doing anything except emergency, so I had a telemedicine appointment and met with my doctor over my phone. And how would that affect insurance? What about now? So if a doctor gets sued for medical malpractice for an error, is there maybe a higher possibility of something like that happening? I don't know, maybe, but it needs to be investigated. And what about for work comp? So work comp pays for injuries to an employee that is injured in the course of their work. Maybe they don't need to go to the ER, maybe they do, maybe they're not sure. What if they could telemedicine right from the job site and see a nurse face to face and say, look at my finger, do I need stitches or should I just put a bandage on? And so many things like that are changing. So even if you're in the healthcare field, you could end up in the insurance field, because you could be that nurse that's on call accepting telemedicine calls from injured employees. And then the sharing economy. I mean, Turo is here. You may not want to have a gig where you're an Uber driver, but maybe you have a room listed on Airbnb. How does that affect your insurance? How does that affect claims? What if I want to lease my car out through Turo? When does my insurance stop? When does theirs start? And how are our two policies different? What does mine cover and theirs doesn't? And there's just so many things that, and there will always be these new leading technology changes in our society that we will always have to change as an industry. And it will always create new opportunities. So I know Nick's got some, I think we're past our hour here. I don't want to go really, really long. Nick's got some additional links to some options that with regard to like AE Benecord is a recruiter that specializes just in insurance. There are other programs out there that will go around and look for insurance posts for people that are posting resumes and things on monster.com and so forth, Monster Jobs. Here is the information for this INVEST program. I would say too, regardless of insurance or another industry, I think that there's an association for just about every industry. And the associations generally know the really good players within their industry. And they can be a resource for you for helping direct, hey, where would you apply if you were looking for a job for this type of work? And, the big I is our National Association for Independent Agents, michagent.org. That is our state association for Michigan independent agents. They would be great resources for anything with regard to the insurance industry. And I don't know if there's any last questions here before we wrap up, but I think that's all I've got. If not.
Well, let me just first say this was an incredible presentation. I think too often people don't realize the breadth of the insurance industry and all the amazing facets people can get into. And knowing that a lot of this is kind of based on passion or the trajectory people see in their own lives and how to kind of pull that together. I guess I was curious, all things being equal, what would you say is the most lucrative path for a new insurance agent or for someone trying to get into the industry?
So if we're chasing the dollars and not our passion, then it depends. I would say you can do if you're a corporate kind of guy or gal, and you want to go to the company side and work your way up that way, there's going to be a corporate ladder, and there's going to be probably a pretty apparent path to what that ladder looks like. If you are more of the entrepreneurial mind and you're interested more in sort of almost being your own boss, the agent side is. And there's pros and cons to both. I'm fortunate that I do make a good living. My wife is able to stay home out of choice. And right now my son is doing online because of COVID. He'll be back in school, but it afforded us to be able to, she was basically be able to do his online schooling and become his teacher almost for the year. I'm able to set my vacation time and my days. I have a lot of work, so it's not like I can just go do whatever I want whenever I want because there's work that needs to get done. But I can make those decisions on doing what I want when I want, and being able to make a living that affords me the ability to do some of those things that I want to do when I'm on vacation too. So if it's money you're chasing first, I would say depending upon your personality, the entrepreneurial side would be the agent side. The corporate mindset would be through the company side, thinking about how do you want to get into management and working up the ladder.
Perfect. And if there are any questions still to be asked from folks that are attending today, feel free to either unmute and kind of shout it out or put it in the chat there. And we'll just make sure we get those attended to before the end of today's session. And the last thing I want to say is if you would like to connect with Doug, maybe after this session and maybe learn a little bit more about him and the process of becoming an insurance agent, I think he'd be open to that as well. And you could either email me directly or if you're comfortable, we can give him your email as well. But if there's any questions, feel free. Now's a great time. Okay. Well, seeing none, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and send everybody a follow-up email. It's attended and registered for today's session with a few of the links that were discussed there at the end, as well as some other kind of resources for you guys and a link to today's recorded session in case you did miss anything or you'd like to just go back and have a second listen. I do want to, again, thank our great speaker for his time today. It's really been wonderful to have you and to really get a deep dive into all the interesting facets, again, of insurance. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick.
Much appreciated. And we hope to see you guys again at our next session. Thank you for joining us and have a great day.